Hello, Southern California sport fishing and weather fans. It's Chris Dunn, the fishing weatherman, with your weekly SoCal weather update. This update about a week away from Thanksgiving, November 16th, 2022, as we have had our first real taste of Santa Ana winds, not affecting the offshore areas as much as the mountains and the deserts. But the Santa Anas are kicking up and will again this weekend to a little bit lesser extent. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about your Thanksgiving weather and the sport fishing opportunities that you might have as we head into Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving weekend. So Santa Ana wind season is now officially here. Not that there is a specific season, but typically around November through about March, our Santa Ana winds really kick in, and it has been in some of the mountain areas up to 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Bluefin are still out there and still being caught, so that is a possibility on the table. And the holiday weekend at this point looks great. We're talking about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So with that, we'll roll right into our satellite review. This is the visible satellite picture. You can see the Sierra Nevada there covered with snow, the mountains over Nevada. Here's Southern California. There's some high clouds approaching the central coast, but clear skies here, which is very typical of an offshore wind. It scours out the atmosphere. It dries things out. We have really dry air all the way down to the coast, and we have winds that are pushing that marine layer, any hint of a marine layer, well offshore. All of the areas in pink and kind of magenta color here indicating that wind that is strengthening. Up here we can query individual stations. This is Beaumont in that Banning Pass, Beaumont area. 20 knot winds gusting to 27. That's out of the east, so it's coming right on through that gap. Cabazon, you know where the big dinosaur was or is? I don't know if that big dinosaur is still there on your way out to Palm Springs. East wind to 28, gusting to 40. This is as of Wednesday afternoon, so the winds are still strong. Avalon Harbor, right down here, the winds have been coming in out of the northeast, but not quite as strong. In fact, here is a live webcam as of Wednesday afternoon in Avalon. You can kind of see some of those waves pushing in the normally protected lee side or the front side of Catalina. Whenever we get these northeast winds or a Santa Ana condition, it will sometimes push those waves up into the normally protected Avalon Harbor. And sometimes if it's really bad, the waves will start crashing against the beach and the seawall there up by the Tuna Club. Which is it that one or that one? One of those is the Avalon Tuna Club. All right, and speaking of Catalina, we will have another round, a little brief burst of some Santa Ana offshore winds coming up this weekend. So Saturday we'll start to see an uptick. And you notice the wind direction arrow here. That's the wind direction where it's coming from. So if it's pointing down like that, it's coming from the northeast and moving towards the southwest. So that is an offshore wind. This model is projecting wind gusts to 30 miles per hour out of the northeast. But it's going to be a quick shot. Once that moves through, things settle down Monday and Tuesday and into the Thanksgiving holiday. And as mentioned, the Thanksgiving weekend actually looks pretty good. This is our San Clemente Basin buoy, and offshore we're finding a lot lighter winds. So the Santa Anas really have much more of an effect on the mountains and the valley passes where it tends to funnel that wind right on through and accelerates it. Once it gets offshore, typically it starts to decrease in intensity. So we're finding 5 knots or less on the wind speed, wind gusts of 6. And that's it. And the water temperature really hasn't taken too much of a dive, especially after the last week or so where we had a lot of wind. 63.7 is the current water temperature still offshore, so we're looking in fine shape. And speaking of the mountains where the Santa Ana winds are blowing in dry air, it's great for snowmaking. They've been making snow. They have been getting snow in the Big Bear Lake area. This is Snow Summit, just in case you're into winter sports. Yes, that is going on up in the higher terrain of Southern California. All right, this is the projection. This is the GFS model. The blue indicates snow, the green indicates rain, and all those squiggly lines you see there, those are lines of equal pressure. So when we have a lot of lines close together, we typically will have a lot of wind. We don't see that this is Thursday and getting into Friday. How about that extra little push of Santa Anas on the weekend? Well, right up in here, you'll notice across Nevada and Utah, a lot of those lines that are squished together, and there's a strong high-pressure area over here over Montana. That will drop into the Great Basin, and this is kind of a typical setup for our Santa Ana wind conditions. So as that goes into play into Idaho and Wyoming, this is going to be later Saturday into Sunday. So right about in here, we can start to see a little bit of that push trying to get through the mountains and some of those valleys right here. Again, just a quick little push, and then once that pressure gradient relaxes, this is Monday and into Tuesday, you notice how far apart those lines are. Not as tight of a pressure gradient. So the difference in the air pressure, the atmospheric pressure between one point and the other, pretty far away, and not that great of a pressure differential. And that's what really drives the wind. So we're not going to see a whole lot of wind on Tuesday. There is another system that passes by Northern California. That will give them some rain. SoCal, I think, stays dry with that one. That's going to be on Wednesday. Then as we get into Thursday, this is Thanksgiving Day in the afternoon. Right here, again, a fairly light wind pattern, so not bad at all, and dry weather. No rain for Thanksgiving this year. On into Friday, Black Friday. Friday and Saturday, again, the wind, the lines, the isobars are spaced pretty far apart, so there's a very light pressure gradient or a weak pressure gradient across Southern California and the coastal waters and all of the Channel Islands. So this might actually be one of those great opportunities to head all the way out to San Nic. If you have an opportunity to hop on a boat for Thanksgiving weekend, maybe hitting some of those outer Channel Islands or some of those offshore areas like Cortez Bank, Tanner Bank, wherever the bluefin might be roaming about now. This is Saturday night on into Sunday. And things still looking really good this weekend. And it's not until we get into early next week where we see this really large system developing up here off the coast of Washington and Oregon. That's really going to start to open up the door for a big pattern change along the West Coast. So when we go into Tuesday, again, this is the week after Thanksgiving. So we're talking about the 1st of December. A big storm pounding in Northern California and the Sierra Nevada, probably a couple of feet of snow with that one if this plays out the way we think it is. And that will bring some rain into SoCal, but this is going to be the first couple of days of December. Still looking pretty far out. As far as the specific wind, now I showed you the isobars and how those are stacked up or not stacked up. This is how things will play out. This is, again, the analysis, the hindcast. This is Wednesday. So this is our Santa Ana winds from Wednesday, the 16th. As we go into Thursday and Friday, things kind of backing off a little bit. Then as that system drops into the Great Basin, Nevada and Utah, we'll start to see a little bit of that wind pushing through SoCal right in there. So that's going to be Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Typically, with the Santa Ana overnight, it tends to be a little more enhanced. So it looks like Saturday night into early Sunday morning, an offshore wind push. But once that gets out of here, things looking good for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This is Thanksgiving Day. So on Thanksgiving and then the couple of days after Thanksgiving, this is the weekend of Thanksgiving. This is Sunday afternoon. And again, a fairly light wind pattern. Anything that's in the blue is about 10 to 12 knots or less. The darker blue is closer to 20. But as we go through Saturday, this is Saturday afternoon and Saturday morning, a lot of white in there. Anything that's white is 4 knots or less. So a light wind pattern coming up for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Here comes a whole lot of wind with that, again, that door starting to open on the Pacific Storm track as we will start to see things really opening up as far as the wind is concerned. So speaking of that wind for this week ahead and this weekend ahead, there's that little increase in the Santa Anas, again, out of the northeast. Could get quite gusty. Some of those preferred locations off the Ventura County coast, Oxnard, Channel Islands, Port Hueneme. We're looking at Anacapa Island gusting up to into the 40-mile-per-hour range if you're downwind of one of those typically wind-prone areas down below the passes and the canyons. Coronado Islands, there's not a whole lot that will really funnel and channel and direct that wind right across the island. So through the weekend, a steady 10 to 12 knots of wind through Saturday and Sunday. Nothing horrible, though. It will be a slight offshore breeze there, too. And then things starting to come down as we lead into Thanksgiving. And then our final stop on the San Clemente Basin buoy. Again, the same thing, just a little bit of an uptick on the wind, slight uptick on Sunday, but not a whole lot. It's that weekend after, the weekend after Thanksgiving that we're looking at for a really great setup for fishing in the offshore zone and the coastal zone as well. So another look at the weather headlines. Again, we're looking at the Santa Ana wind season really starting to kick in. Again, bluefin still are out there, and the holiday weekend is looking great. You can always check on the latest forecast on my website, thefishingweatherman.com. Go ahead and bookmark it. I have a lot of great tools on there, some of the graphics you've seen here, and also all of the latest text forecasts directly from the good folks at the National Weather Service. They do a terrific job and a terrific service for us, your tax dollars at work. And of course, as always, Good luck and be safe, and happy Thanksgiving.